Well, I saw the latest version of Salem's Lot on Max, and right off the bat, it's all right. It's not bad. It has its weaknesses, and of course, was there another version of it? I seem to think there was, but I mostly know Salem's Lot from the late '70s version with David Soul and James Mason and all that, and the blonde kid that was in all the movies and shows back then. And for plot points, it's very similar. It's just that was the miniseries at the time, and so they had more time to develop the characters and explore their stories much further. Whereas in this movie form, they got to go through things pretty quick. So. Most notably, there's a character who figures out it's vampires pretty quickly. Well, you needed to have something there, even just a few lines of dialogue would detail as to why this guy is so quick to believe this. The kid, of course, he's into horror comics, and he's got all these figurines and models of Dracula and the Mummy and stuff like that. So he starts seeing this stuff, and he's already figured it out himself. But he's a kid, and he's easier given to these ideas, I would suspect, than learned adults. So that's one of the things there. The main character of David Soul's character, Mir, I believe, was the writer, who grew up in that town. Suffered the loss of his parents in a drunk driving accident and all this sort of thing, and then comes back with an interest of doing a story on the old Marston house, which is where the vampire has taken residence. So all that's very similar in it, but it's just sort of there, and then he's thrust into this a vampire ordeal. There's really not a lot more to it other than you can understand some sympathies for the young boy who loses his parents to all of that, but that's really only for the ending where they drive off together. And of course, in the series, they become professional vampire hunters. It looks like at the end, they're determined to hunt these monsters down wherever they find them. And so it kind of becomes like an origin story for the two of them as a result, since they're the only ones to survive all of this. But ultimately, it's just the entire town is basically infested by the vampire Barlow's evil. And little by little, of course, in this, it's all very quick. And you don't get to appreciate that, hey, things are getting weird around here. What's going on? They do it all at once. They say, hey, there's no one around, because they can't be. They all have to be in the dark during the day because they're all vampires now and that sort of thing. But for what it is, it's all right. They go through their emotions. It's just things like that where it just kind of, well, let's jump ahead. You even have a doctor who, she doesn't really believe all this. And then, when she's attacked by a vampire, yeah, she does. But then she immediately, and I mean, some of that, it's not as bad as I would think as the guy who suddenly figures it out and seems to be already clued in where he's about to discover, yeah, he's got a vampire in the house and that sort of thing. But he figures it out way too quickly. In her case, she gets attacked. So, dude, this is all true. And uses medical science to avoid herself becoming a vampire, but also quickly realizes that the use of a cross also comes in handy as well. Now they make good on that with some special effects on how the cross works, and also as a display of the broken down priest who's become an alcoholic, who his faith is really broken, and doesn't serve him well to not have the faith in his confrontation with Barlow, of course. But then again, the others, who I don't know how devout they are, and they're quickly grabbing crosses to deal with it and fight off these vampires. Seems to work just fine for them, but then, I guess you take it that it's much harder for the priest for whatever his problem, his depression, or, that happened to him. Well, doesn't work. And that scene where the boys' parents meet their end, and that's one of the weaknesses in the original, in the miniseries. I mean, it's hilarious, but it's the vampire swoops in and he kills the kid's parents. How does he do it? Well, it turns out he's a Three Stooges fan as he bonks their heads together. And they drop dead. Here in the movie, does it in the usual vampire way of how he dispatches the kid's parents. So that's how it goes. But you don't get the Three Stooges bit. So other than that, with the speed of it is a little too much. Of course, it's for time, but it doesn't quite have the impact as when you have more time to display how the town has changed because of the shadow and evil of Barlow has taken the town and all that. The ending is somewhat different to make it a bit more spectacular in how they confront the vampires at the end. So it doesn't do it the same way as it was in the original. The Straker character, originally played by James Mason, starts out having the role that he has, but it doesn't go that way for the rest of it. They maneuver things around. I think the woman at the end was one of the side characters in the original. So I think they brought her back to be the mother of, the writer's girlfriend in this and that sort of thing. So I guess but I don't know if that's why they wrote her a larger part in it, but, what have you. So all in all, it's okay. It's fine. For that, it's just got some weaknesses to it, and I just, of course, I'm biased to the original in that, but I think it's a strong case to make that with more time, it has more explanation for it all than you have trying to get all that in a movie. However, a few lines of dialogue is saying this guy had some experience in the past, and he is more ready to believe that there's such a thing as vampires and that sort of stuff. But all in all, it was okay, and it had some, it was well shot, and everybody played their roles fine. And again, if you know the novel, then you could be a better judge than I am. I've never read it, so I don't know which one is more loyal and true to the actual novel. Maybe the movie is more so in a lot of ways of how it plays out, and I don't know, was the ending that way, that sort of thing. So there you go. And of course, I'm always much more appreciative of vampire stories that do portray vampires as absolute monsters. Got really sick of the trend of them being romantic heroes. And I think that's over, and good riddance. I think they're back to being monsters, and that's been true for quite some time. There was The Strain and 30 Days of Night and stuff like that. So there you go. Salem's Lot, now streaming on Max, so check it out.